The fluorescent lights of the Walmart superstore hummed with an indifferent, draining efficiency, casting long, stark shadows that did nothing to hide the panic in Cassandra Cassie Varensky's eyes. She was the resilient underdog, standing at the self-checkout, her heart a frantic drummer against her ribs, the machine displaying a merciless total, 152.48. Her hands were clammy as she swiped the burner debit card, a precaution against the ruthless eyes of the past that were constantly watching, a past that constituted the external threat. The screen flashed red. Transaction declined. Cassie tried again, a desperate, silent plea. Declined. She felt the heat of the people waiting behind her, a pressure cooker of judgment. But her fear was not for public humiliation. It was for the contents of the cart. Generic milk, some cheap bread, and the single tiny bottle of pediatric anti-seizure medication that Leo, her younger brother, the vulnerable loved one, needed to survive the night. He was tucked away in a cheap motel room 10 miles away, and Cassie's fierce loyalty to him was the only thing keeping her upright. She was financially disadvantaged, living moment to moment, a ghost trying to provide for the one person whose life was worth more than any price. She quickly scanned the items again, frantically trying to calculate what she could sacrifice, what could be bought tomorrow. But the medicine was non-negotiable, its price exactly $15, the one item that had tipped her over the edge. Her composure was slipping, her disguise failing, and the rising stakes were about to ignite a catastrophic confrontation. She took a deep, shaky breath, her internal monologue screaming for her to grab the medicine and run, but her strong moral compass refused the theft. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" a voice asked from behind her, low and rich, cutting through the store's static like a razor wire. The voice belonged to the man now standing right beside her, an instance of immediate forced proximity. He wasn't dressed for Walmart. Maximilian Max Sterling wore a coat made of something impossibly fine, his entire presence a violation of the mundane setting. He was handsome in a cold, intimidating way, his eyes the color of polished jade, assessing her with a look of comprehensive calculation, like a hunter confirming his prey. He was the powerful and possessive protector, a terrifying archetype she knew from the high-stakes world she had fled. Cassie quickly covered the medicine bottle with a loaf of bread, her jaw tight. "No, sir. Just a slight card issue. I'll just—" She started, her voice dry, adopting the neutral facade of an invisible, struggling citizen, ready to enact her plan of leaving everything but the prescription. Max didn't wait. He leaned in, a move that was too familiar, too intimate, and certainly too dramatic for a simple checkout line. He placed his hand on the keypad, overriding her attempt to void the transaction. "Just the one credit. Card issue? Or is this a chronic affliction?" he murmured, his voice lowering to an intimate whisper only for her. Before she could react, he slid a matte black card into the machine. A moment later, the machine beeped a triumphant final sound. The screen flashed green. Approved. 150.48. Max had not just paid the $150 she was short, he had paid the entire debt, establishing the opening plot point of the title and, more importantly, establishing his immediate control. "Consider it a donation to the cause," he said, his eyes locking onto hers, his expression a cold, declarative statement of power and intent. Cassie felt a wave of icy recognition mixed with profound terror. The cinematic conflict introduction was complete, and the stage was set for the mystery reveal. She hadn't seen him in 3 years, but Max hadn't forgotten the single most dangerous woman in his world. Max took the receipt and handed it to her, his fingers brushing hers, a calculated moment of forced proximity. Cassie snatched the receipt, her heart hammering not from gratitude, but from the searing heat of his calculated gaze. "I don't need charity, Mr." she started, adopting the defiant stance that was her core trait. Sterling. Just Max. He corrected, his smile thin and chilling. And I don't give charity, Cassandra. I invest. Now take your things. We have a lot to discuss about your career choices. He knew her name. The real one. The name that was a code word for danger and death in the criminal world she was hiding from. Her heart plummeted as she realized her meticulous life on the run. The burner phones, the cash payments, the cheap motels, had all been a fruitless exercise. She was the mouse, and he was the predator. Max's calm declarative statement and the immediate knowledge of her true identity was the first mystery reveal. Cassie grabbed the bags, her hands moving on autopilot, her body now responding to a primal flight instinct. She had to get to Leo. He is trying to be the protector, but his core motivation is still control and possession. The internal monologue was sharp and defining, keeping the narrative focused on her emotional state. Max simply followed her, his pace unhurried, his guard trailing slightly behind, maintaining a terrifying proximity. The parking lot was a labyrinth of wet asphalt and flickering sodium lights, a visual cue prompt that mirrored her emotional isolation. Cassie moved with the urgency of a woman running for her life, but Max kept pace, his expensive shoes making no sound. He caught her just as she reached her beat-up Ford Escort. "Running again, Cassie? That's your perennial habit," Max murmured, placing a hand on the roof of her car, preventing her from opening the door. His voice was a seductive, dangerous, intimate whisper, a deliberate tactic to build tension. "You're slipping. The burner card failed. You're buying prescription-only anti-seizure meds for a child. You're not just broke. You're desperate. And desperate women make loud targets." This was the core of his questioning motives and his initial move in the cat-and-mouse dynamic. Cassie spun around, her eyes blazing with the fierce loyalty that defined her. "My affairs are none of your business. You bought me groceries, Max. That's all. Now step away from my car." She was the resilient underdog, inherently brave and defiant against the powerful protector. Max leaned in closer, his proximity now threatening, and he delivered the ultimate leverage, the rising stakes escalating to a catastrophic level. "It becomes my business when the syndicate uses your brother's hospital records to track you. Leo's doctor flagged his medication change last week. My security chief intercepted the query 15 minutes ago. They know where you were last week, Cassie. They're minutes away from knowing where you are tonight." Cassie felt the ground drop out from under her. Her vigilance, her meticulous security, had all been bypassed by a simple prescription refill. Her vulnerable loved one was now Max's ultimate weapon. Max pulled out his phone, not to show her a location, but to play a sound. A quiet, rhythmic beeping, the steady monitor tone of an ICU. "Leo is safe for now. I moved him from the motel to a private, secure clinic outside the city an hour ago. He's got a specialist, a private nurse, and round-the-clock security. They won't find him, because they'll be looking for you." His core motivation of control and possession was masked as ultimate protection. "You don't get a choice, Cassandra. You and I are leaving. You come with me to my secure location, my gilded cage, and I guarantee Leo's safety. Refuse, and I put you both back on the street, right in front of the syndicate's line of fire." His declarative statement was absolute, and Cassie, the agent of change, realized her only path to autonomy was through temporary submission. She was trapped. Cassie slid into Max's armored S-Class without another word, her humiliation profound, her defeat complete. The car was a fortress, a symbol of the dangerous, often criminal world he inhabited. The setting as character shifted from the fluorescent nightmare of Walmart to the silent, plush, mobile cage. The drive to Max's penthouse was silent, punctuated only by the crackle of Max's encrypted radio calls, his words quick, punchy, and in a language Cassie didn't recognize, a subtle reminder of the suspense that underlay their new reality. Cassie stared out the window, watching the city lights blur into streaks of yellow and red, a constant visualization of her own loss of control. Max was cold, intimidating, and ruthless, perfectly embodying the antagonist archetype. Yet, his ruthless efficiency had saved Leo's life, a dangerous contradiction that chipped away at her resolve. She was forced into forced proximity with the man who now held her life and her brother's in the palm of his hand, allowing the slow burn suspense to begin its insidious work. Max's penthouse was exactly as she imagined, a steel and glass monument to power, a true gilded cage high above the city. The living room alone was larger than the entire motel she'd been living in. Max showed her to her room. A suite, actually. Secure and lavish. The first thing she did was demand access to Leo's medical reports, asserting her fiercely loyal and protective nature. Max, surprisingly, complied, handing her a tablet preloaded with real-time vitals and encrypted video feed. His act showing the first sign of his hidden vulnerability, his trust in her, as a mother-taught-caregiver. You will not leave this floor. My people will bring you anything you need. You will communicate only through this encrypted line, Max dictated, his voice a series of declarative statements designed to establish control. Cassie nodded, but her mind was already in transformation mode. She was no longer a victim. She was a spy in her own prison. She had to find the source of his knowledge, the true nature of the syndicate, and the weakness that Max, the powerful protector, was hiding. Days turned into a suffocating week. Cassie followed the rhythm of slow-burn suspense, spending her time watching Leo's video feed and probing Max's environment for clues. Max himself remained an enigma, alternating between intense, private phone calls in his high-security office and quiet, almost gentle moments when he would ask about Leo's favorite cartoon or the intricacies of the anti-seizure medication. She recognized the classic cat and mouse dynamic at play. He thought he had caged the mouse, but the mouse was charting the bars. One night, while Max was working late, Cassie used a trick she learned in her past life, a small, flexible piece of foil, to pick the lock on a decorative antique cabinet in the library. Inside, hidden beneath old financial ledgers, she found a symbolic object, a small tarnished silver locket. It was broken in half, one side missing, and engraved with the initials AS, Max's family initials. It was the chink in his armor, the potential key to the mystery reveal that would give her the autonomy she craved. Cassie waited until Max was finishing his midnight scotch in the library, a quiet, character-focused moment that allowed for an intense dialogue. She walked in, the broken locket held conspicuously between her fingers, her body language radiating defiant confidence. "Who is AS?" she asked, her voice calm, a direct strike at his carefully constructed emotional wall. Max froze, the ice in his glass rattling faintly. His initial reaction was to deny it, trying to dismiss her with a curt declarative statement. "It's an old family heirloom, Cassandra. It holds no relevance." But Cassie countered, her questioning motives relentless, exploiting the vulnerability she saw. "It holds all the relevance, Max. It's broken. And it was hidden beneath the ledgers of the syndicate's first illegal acquisitions. AS was someone you lost to this world, someone the syndicate either took or forced you to sacrifice. You're not just protecting me from them, you're avenging her through me. Who was she, and how did your personal code of honor allow you to betray her?" Evoking his code was the key. Max finally cracked, his rigid control shattering in an emotional confession. He told her the truth about Anya Sterling, his older sister, the rival's predecessor, who had initially exposed the syndicate's financial crimes, the reason Cassie had been forced to run in the first place. Max, a young man, was coerced by his ruthless father to publicly betray Anya's whistleblower efforts, sealing his position as the protector but destroying his soul. They didn't kill her, Cassie. They imprisoned her. And they only released her when I agreed to take control of the family's legitimate operations and silence the whistleblowers. Like you, he admitted, his voice rough and laced with self-hatred. My code of honor was twisted. I saved my sister's life by agreeing to perpetuate the criminal enterprise that destroyed her spirit. He was the powerful protector who was himself a victim, a perfect mystery reveal that recontextualized the entire conflict. Cassie felt a complex mix of hatred for his past choices and a terrifying empathy for his confession. She was now fully the powerful agent of change, knowing that their enemy was not the syndicate itself, but the head of the syndicate, a new leader who had assumed control after Max's father died. This leader was Veronica, Max's ex-fiancée, a powerful woman from his past, the rival. The rising stakes escalated violently the next day. Max was in his secure office when the system registered a breach. A specialized strike team, moving with terrifying speed, had reached the penthouse. Veronica, the rival, had finally tracked the financial anomaly from the Walmart transaction, the single, unexpected 152.48 purchase. Max stormed out, his gun drawn, yelling declarative statements to his security team. Cassie, galvanized by the knowledge of Anya's suffering and the realization that Max was fighting to redeem himself, refused to retreat to the panic room. This was the moment of fast-paced action. Max was ready to fight them off, maintaining the defensive posture of the protector. But Cassie, remembering her training from her past life as a corporate forensic accountant who had stumbled upon the syndicate's files, saw something he missed. She realized the strike team's entry point was not the usual perimeter. The vents, Max. They're coming through the maintenance vents. They were used for the last syndicate extraction, she yelled, her internal monologue prioritizing survival over explanation. Max trusted her instantly. The vent shafts lead to the lower utility core. They're going after Leo first. He roared, his voice laced with pure fear for the vulnerable loved one. Cassie, demonstrating her transformation from a victim into a strategic partner, didn't follow Max to the utility core. Instead, she sprinted to the main security panel in the wall. Max had left it open during their earlier planning session. She was inherently brave and defiant. She began furiously overriding the codes. Max, fighting off the initial wave of intruders, saw her action, a potential betrayal, and screamed a desperate declarative statement across the penthouse. Cassandra, what are you doing? Cassie ignored him, her fingers flying across the keypad, forcing the building's emergency lockdown sequence. I'm turning the gilded cage into a tomb, Max. They can't access the core if the entire floor is sealed. The entire penthouse shuddered as heavy steel blast doors slammed shut, trapping the syndicate team on the wrong side of the utility core and securing Leo. Max looked at her, his expression a mixture of awe and dawning terror. Her act had saved them, but it had also turned them into static targets. The cat-and-mouse dynamic transformed into a shared, desperate escape. Max led Cassie through a series of Secret Service corridors and a hidden elevator that descended into the city's underbelly. They emerged into the darkness of an abandoned shipping yard, the setting as character, a perfect visual cue for the dangerous world they were entering. Max was now fighting for them, not for control. He was transformed, relying on her instincts as much as his own. Veronica is playing for all the stakes, Cassie. She knows you were the key to the drive, the proof of the syndicate's corruption. She is trying to eliminate you before you can expose them, Max explained, his voice an intimate whisper filled with urgency. Cassie, however, realized Max was still hiding the ultimate truth. You're still holding back. You know where that drive is, the one that exposes Veronica and clears Anya's name. You've been leading me on a chase because you don't trust me with the true location. Cassie's constant questioning motives finally cornered him. Max stopped dead in the cold, wet shadows of the dockyard. He looked at her, and the desperation in his eyes confirmed her suspicion. The drive is in the only place Veronica can't touch it. The only place I could truly safeguard it, he confessed, his voice barely a rasp. It's in the vault, the one that contains the Sterling family's most sacred possessions. Cassie understood the symbolism of the location. She looked at him, her defiance absolute. Take me there, now. Max complied, his previous need for control and possession giving way to his profound need for her trust and integrity. They drove in silence, the car now moving toward the location of the final mystery reveal. Max led Cassie into the sub-basement of an old, unused bank building, a complex vault-ridden setting his character. The vault was a massive, imposing steel structure that represented Max's deepest secrets. He typed in a complex sequence of codes, the heavy gears grinding open with a terrifying finality. Inside, bathed in the glow of a single internal light, was not only the encrypted drive, but also a collection of old documents and a family crest. Max handed Cassie the drive. Here is your autonomy, Cassandra, the proof to bring the syndicate to its knees. But Cassie didn't look at the drive. Her eyes were fixed on the documents, old land deeds, wills, and an intricate family tree stretching back a century. She scanned the names, the dates, the lineage, her internal monologue piecing together the final shocking truth. Max's father hadn't usurped the syndicate. He had merely assumed the operational role after the Verensky family line vanished. The original owners, the true founders of the legitimate and illegitimate power structure, were the Verenskys, her family. The final world-shattering mystery reveal struck her with the force of a physical blow. My grandmother, she didn't just run from the syndicate, Cassie whispered, her voice thick with revelation. She was the true head, the queen. She staged her death to save the Verensky bloodline. And your family wasn't protecting your empire from me. You were protecting me from my empire. Max stepped toward her, his expression grave, his confession a quiet, intimate whisper. You are the legitimate heir, Cassandra, the Verensky queen. The $150 I paid that day in Walmart wasn't for groceries. It was the entry fee to reclaim the only woman who could stop this war and rule what is rightfully hers. The open loop of her identity was violently sealed. The cat-and-mouse dynamic was broken. Max wasn't the predator or the protector. He was the guardian, waiting for his queen to return. The confrontation with Veronica, the rival, was inevitable, but Cassie chose the location. The top floor of the abandoned bank, overlooking the city, a direct challenge to the throne. Max stood by her side, his possession transformed into fierce loyalty. Veronica arrived, smug and ruthless, believing Max had brought Cassie to be eliminated. You're a fool, Max. You brought me the evidence and the traitor, Veronica sneered, making a final, confident, declarative statement. Cassie stepped forward, the encrypted drive held conspicuously in her hand, dressed in an outfit Max's man had quickly provided, the attire of a warrior, not a waitress. You were an accountant, Veronica. You were never the queen. This drive proves your illegal takeover. The syndicate's power doesn't reside in its accounts. It resides in its bloodline, and I am the Verensky. Her voice, once hushed by fear, was now a resonant, powerful statement of autonomy. She was the powerful agent of change who had transformed into the resilient underdog queen. Veronica lunged, but Max was faster, his actions now purely defensive, focused entirely on shielding Cassie. He didn't fight for control. He fought for his partner, the mother of their future. The fast-paced action was short-lived, Max and his men quickly subduing Veronica, the ultimate cliffhanger leading to the ultimate conclusion. Maxie turned to Cassie, his hands cupping her face, his gaze intense. The war is over, my queen. You won your autonomy. You won your throne. His voice was a final, poetic declaration of his transformation. Cassie looked out over the city, the syndicate's territory now hers. She reached up, pulling Max's tie, bringing his lips close. She had fled her identity only to find her destiny. The open loop was no longer about escaping a man, but about ruling beside him, their union a dangerous, volatile, and profoundly romantic alliance. "The war may be over, Max," Cassie whispered, her eyes shining with the power she had claimed. "But the reign has just begun. I need my king. Now let's go collect Leo." The serialized romantic drama was poised for its next terrifying installment, leaving the audience invested in their dangerous new life together, the true price of the $150 paid at Walmart.